Behavioral patterns often reveal what is invisible to the casual observer. In some cases, unpredictability itself becomes a weapon. Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, terrorized California in the mid-1980s, but what made his actions so unpredictable? Tonight we open the file. This is the Night Archive, a forensic examination of violent crime through investigative analysis. Every case leaves a record. Tonight, we examine the behavioral patterns, psychological indicators, and investigative insights of Richard Ramirez. Los Angeles, 1985. Windows were locked. Doors were bolted. But it didn't matter. Because somewhere in the darkness, a man was watching. He didn't follow a pattern. He didn't choose a type. He chose opportunity. And the media gave him a name that would terrify California forever. The Night Stalker. His real name was Richard Ramirez. But by the summer of 1985, he had become something far more terrifying, a living nightmare. This is the story of how one man turned an entire city into prisoners of fear. Richard Ramirez was born in 1960 in El Paso, Texas. From a young age, violence surrounded him. His cousin, a Vietnam War veteran, allegedly exposed him to graphic stories of torture and killing. At just 13 years old, Ramirez witnessed his cousin shoot his own wife in the face. Something shifted in him. Drugs, isolation, obsession with Satanism. By his early 20s, he had drifted to California, angry, unstable, and escalating. In June 1984, a 79-year-old woman was found brutally murdered in her Los Angeles home. The attack was savage, random, personal. Then it happened again and again. Victims ranged from children to elderly couples. There was no clear pattern. Different weapons, different neighborhoods, different methods. But one detail began appearing at crime scenes: a pentagram drawn in lipstick. The killer openly praised Satan, and fear spread faster than facts. By the summer of 1985, Los Angeles was paralyzed. Gun sales skyrocketed. Hardware stores sold out of locks. News outlets warned residents, "He comes at night." Parents kept children home. Windows were boarded shut despite the heat. The killer entered through unlocked doors, open windows, and even pet doors. Anyone could be next. Then, a mistake. Ramirez left a fingerprint on a stolen car. Police finally had a name. His mugshot aired across television in California. On August 31st, 1985, Ramirez was recognized by ordinary citizens in East Los Angeles. He was chased down, beaten by a crowd, and held until police arrived. The city that lived in fear captured him. The trial began in 1988 and became a media spectacle. Ramirez showed no remorse. He flashed satanic symbols in court. In 1989, he was convicted of 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, and multiple assaults. He was sentenced to death. But he would die decades later, in 2013, from cancer while still on death row. The Night Stalker didn't just commit crimes, he changed how California slept. He proved that fear doesn't need a pattern, it just needs darkness. And somewhere, there's always someone watching. But this story isn't just about the crimes, it's about the psychology behind them, the need for control, the performance of fear. The unpredictability made him so difficult to stop. Why did he change methods? Why were the targets so different? And what does that tell us about his internal world? Adolescence is where identity forms, where belonging becomes critical. Ramirez struggled academically. He withdrew socially. He developed an internal world detached from conventional boundaries. Research in criminal psychology suggests that chronic rejection and humiliation can create what experts call a compensatory fantasy life, a place where power replaces shame, where dominance replaces vulnerability. And over time, fantasy seeks expression. The question is not simply why violence. The deeper question is, why control? Why intrusion? Why the calculated invasion of personal space? For some offenders, the act is less about destruction and more about power, about entering someone's world uninvited, about rewriting reality, and that need for control would later define his methodology. Ramirez was not selecting victims based on personal grievance. He was selecting opportunity. Opportunistic offenders often operate on impulse layered over fantasy. The fantasy sets the direction. Impulse chooses the moment. This created a pattern of inconsistency. Different neighborhoods, different demographics, different entry methods. And that inconsistency was strategic in its own way. It delayed recognition. It delayed connection. It delayed response. The more he got away with his crimes, the bolder he got. His ego let him believe he is untouchable, so he escalates. But escalation always leaves traces. Confidence increases. Risk tolerance expands. Behavior becomes bolder. And when escalation meets media attention, something shifts. For some offenders, media exposure reinforces identity. It transforms fantasy into recognition. Exposure can reinforce identity. Headlines can validate fantasy. And recognition can become fuel. But for Ramirez, media attention and his mistakes were his downfall. He became overly confident. He became careless. His grandiose personality led him believe that he is smarter than law enforcement. He believed he is untouchable. This led to his capture and ultimately his conviction. And for a while, a city could sleep again. This isn't sensationalism, it's analysis. Subscribe and enter the Night Archive. Join us in episode 2, The Mask of Charm, as we continue to explore the mind of a predator hiding in plain sight.